Have you ever visited LA thinking that this is where you wanted to be, but instead are looking to branch out to a different country for your dance career? Or have you had thoughts about moving to the UK for dance and need some insight on how to do that? Well, this is the episode for you. This is episode 32, called Passport to London, with Samara Tong. Hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Unplugged podcast presented by the Dance Plug Toronto. My name is Roy Bonozo, and I'm a former dance studio manager turned dance entrepreneur and advocate. Each week, we bring you a guest with stories of life experiences working in the industry, along with useful tips and information to help you on your journey. Wherever you are listening from, don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe. Before we get into today's guest, here are a few events that are happening in the city later this month. The Skills and Soul Festival is back for one more ride this Sunday, November 17th. Watch and participate in urban dance battles, international caliber shows, and workshops for all levels. All powered by Gadfly's 12th year anniversary. For more information, you can visit www.gadfly.ca. On November 23rd, Tasha Taz and Shamika Blake are collaborating for a special dancehall workshop at Gotta Dance Studios. Come and learn from two of the city's dancehall vets in a special 1.5-hour class. To register, you can email them at gtadancehall@gmail.com or aimdancecompany@gmail.com. This week, we sat down with the phenomenal Samara Tong. Samara is a professional dancer from Toronto who currently resides in London, England. Growing up in a competitive studio from the age of 5 led Samara to be an extremely versatile dancer, which has been one of the key factors in her continued success in this industry. She has been very fortunate to work with some amazing artists so far in her career, including international pop stars Dua Lipa, Little Mix, Julia Michaels, and Shawn Mendes. You may recognize Samara from her last job in Canada before making the move to London as one of the Sport Check girls in the nationwide Life X Style campaign. She will always call Toronto her home and feels very grateful to be able to come back and still be a part of Toronto's dance scene. In her episode, we talk about her journey as a dancer from Toronto to London, the visa process for the UK, and the opportunities London has for dancers. If you're ready, we're ready. This is episode 32 called Passport to London with Samara Tong. On this brisk autumn day in downtown Toronto, I am joined by the ever-so-lovely and freshly returned back from London, UK, Samara Tong.
Hi, Roy. Is that your London accent?
It's a terrible London accent. How are you, love?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. Welcome back.
Thank you.
How's it been?
It's been good. It's nice to be home. I've been here for about a month, and to be honest, I'm excited to go back to London. But
Dum, dum, dum.
But it is very nice to be home for a bit.
That's good.
Yeah.
Why don't we talk about some humbled beginnings? Where does your journey in dance begin?
My journey in dance begins when I was 5 years old. My mom signed me up for an acro class at a dance studio that one of our friends recommended. So I started with acro, and then from there, I moved into the regular studio stuff, ballet, jazz. And I started competing when I was 6. I competed until I was done high school. And from there, I went straight into the Toronto dance scene. I had my first professional job when I was 16.
Wow.
And so I was still in high school.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, it just kept going from there. I didn't stop once I was in Toronto. And then it's been 2 years since I've been in London now.
Nice.
Yeah.
Throughout that time, were there any key individuals that played a key role in your development as an artist?
Absolutely. So there's 3 people that come to mind. And the first one is Shavar Blackwood. I started taking his class when he was teaching at OIP. And I started working more closely with him when he had just started the Male Initiative. Eye candy wasn't a thing yet, but he brought a few girls in to be in the Male Initiative show, and I was one of those girls. So I trained with him for a couple of years doing that, and I would say he really worked on my performance, because if you've ever been in a rehearsal with Shavar, I'm sure he still does the same type of thing where where you will be doing your routine and he'll place someone right in front of you.
And you're forced to like stare them in the eyes while you're doing it.
Which is terrifying. But it was so good because a lot of the performances I was doing with him are very intimate and you're right in front of the audience. Mm-hmm. So that type of training, it's obviously very difficult, but it made such a difference in the way that I am on stage. It forces you to make eye contact. Mm-hmm. It forced me to be uncomfortable and to know when the audience is uncomfortable, because staring at someone while you're dancing in front of them, it's intimidating to be in that spot, but sometimes that's what the routine called for. And that was just really great training for me as a performer to make one person sitting right in front of me feel what they're supposed to be feeling. Another one is Leon Blackwood. He took me under his wing a few years ago, and he allowed me to assist his classes and assist him on certain jobs and bring me to even studios where he was choreographing competition routines. And I think being a part of that and working closely with him, it just gave me a really good sense of how to be a good teacher. And he just trained me so well, style-wise, my dynamics, everything changed when I started working with Leon, and I'm super grateful for the opportunities that he gave me. Even if it was just assisting a class, I grew so much from just being in a studio with him. And one last one would be Hollywood Jade. He taught me how to be a smart dancer. Not to say I wasn't smart before I started working with him, but being on jobs with Hollywood, he taught me how to be respectful and how important it is to be a professional when you're on a job. Mm-hmm. Because it's so easy to just goof off when you're working with your friends, and that's something that Hollywood has taught me, is when you're on jobs and you're in the moment and you're with friends, maybe you don't think about being a professional a lot of the time. It turns into being a fun thing. Yeah. And Hollywood keeps you in check. And yes, we're friends, but he always made sure that I was on point and that I was respecting the directors and the other choreographers and whoever else was involved in these projects, because he won't hire dancers who are not respectful. With Hollywood, he just really taught me how to be professional, how to be smart if you're under pressure on set. If, say, you're doing a music video and the director's telling you to do all these things, you need to be a smart dancer to just get the corrections done and don't ask questions, just do it. So yeah, he really made me into a very disciplined dancer, I think.
Very nice. Nice.
When I was still in my studio, still in high school, the reason I got into the professional Toronto industry was through a guy named Scott Fordham, who I'm sure a lot of people know in Toronto. He actually found me at a dance convention that I went to with my studio, and he had asked me for my contact information after the class, and I was just like, okay, why? Sure. And he contacted me and asked me to be a part of his choreo ball piece. And that was my first time doing choreo ball. I didn't even know what it was. And that was actually Scott's first choreo ball piece as well.
Nice.
So he kind of brought me into Toronto and gave me a taste of what the industry is like. And after the choreo ball piece, he gave me my first job. And that was the City TV New Year's, when that was still a thing. Yep. And I danced for Angeli. And it was actually only two dancers. It was me and AC Mensa.
Nice.
And I was 16 and I had no idea what I was doing. Like, I didn't realize that this was a huge job and that I was working with one of the best female dancers in Toronto. And funny story, I'm pretty sure doing this job is how I met Hollywood as well. And I have this memory of being backstage, getting ready to go on for this live performance on TV, my first job. And I remember Hollywood taking me aside and basically telling me that I needed to step up because I was dancing with AC. And I was terrified because it was my first job. I was already nervous enough. And then to have someone like Hollywood be like, yeah, so you're dancing with this great woman and you just need to be better. I was like, oh my God, I'm so scared. Okay. So yeah, that was how I actually started in the industry, was Scott. So thank you for trusting me and for bringing me into this industry when I honestly don't know if I was ready for it yet, but he gave me a chance, and I really have to thank him for bringing me into the professional world in Toronto.
Before we get into the next question, because the majority of the interview is obviously based on your time out in the UK.
Yes.
How many years did you spend here in Toronto before that?
So I grew up in Aurora, which is just north of Toronto. But when I graduated high school, I moved downtown, so I was 18. Mm-hmm. And I lived in Toronto until I was 25.
Nice. So about 7 years.
Yes.
Great. Coming from a competitive background, what would you say are the benefits of, I guess, leaving that realm and then slowly delving into training in a drop-in setting?
I think coming from a studio, I was taught discipline. Mm-hmm. And I was taught the unwritten rules of being a good class dancer,
yep.
class taker, which it's definitely needed in any industry. You need to know how to be in a dance class. I think coming from a studio, I was set in a routine. Mm-hmm. So I was always taking the same classes every week. I knew, okay, today I have to do jazz. Today I have to do ballet. Like, it was always the same type of thing. So going from that into drop-ins where there was no structure, mm-hmm. I got to pick what I wanted to train in, which is difficult because I had to pick the right classes in order to get the proper training. And I think that's one of the hardest things about going from a studio to a drop-in, do what you want mm-hmm. setting, is you need to be smart and pick the right classes. So it took me a while to figure out who I should be training with, mm-hmm. to figure out what's going to benefit me in the long run, where do I want to go with my career, which path am I going to go down, because that determined which classes I was going to take in the city.
Nice. Let's talk about your journey moving to London. So obviously you spent about 7 years here in Toronto doing multiple stage performances, yes. Choreo balls, bazaars,
yes.
right? Bazaars, yep. Fever After Darks.
Yep.
What influenced your decision to move to the UK?
Because I started in the industry relatively young, I think. I was mm-hmm. 16 when I started dancing in Toronto. I moved when I was 18, and that's when I really dove into it.
Yeah.
And at that time, a lot of people probably don't know, but I was dancing with the generation above me who no longer lives in Toronto. Some of my first jobs, I was dancing with Kim and Vincent and Ophelio, which is crazy, and Melma, Taylor James, like all of those people who are from Toronto but now live in LA.
Yeah.
Those were the people that I started out with, and those were the people that I looked up to. So seeing them move on to LA, I kind of thought, I have to do that too. And I hadn't been to LA until I was 21 maybe, or 22. And before that, I was going back and forth to New York a lot and trying to make connections in New York because I thought I wanted to move there. Mm-hmm. And I love it. I would still live in New York in a heartbeat, but I kind of learned that the industry's not really there right now. And then when I went to LA, I just didn't get the feeling I wanted when I was there. It didn't feel like a place that I was meant to be. So I came back to Toronto after that trip and I thought, what am I going to do? Because everyone goes to LA and I don't think I want to go to LA.
Yeah.
So I had thought about London a little bit. It was just an idea in my head. Didn't really do anything about it until one of my last jobs in Toronto, I did the MMVAs. And the choreographer, his name is Jay Ravel, and he's from London. I didn't know that I was going to be working with an outside choreographer when I got this job because it's in Toronto.
Yeah.
And he actually sat me down in these rehearsals and asked me why I'm still in Toronto. And I really didn't have an answer for him. And he said, okay, so why don't you move to London? Like, you're going to do great out there. And he just put all of these ideas in my head that it's a good idea to go to the UK. So I came home from those rehearsals and I really thought about it. I started doing research on it. And I realized that, yeah, maybe this is the right place for me. So things happened really fast after that. I did the MMVAs in the summer, and by that fall, I had moved to London.
Nice.
Yeah.
You made a great point about visiting different places and then finally realizing that it might not be for you. And for those listeners who followed us since day one, if you'll remember back when we had Mark Samuels, one of the things that he mentioned in his episode was that, don't think that the US or more specifically LA is going to solve all your problems, because it's not. And the world is big. And Samara is a product of that. So we're going to continue on this journey to the UK. But one thing that I think some dancers might want to know is how much do you have to prepare when it comes to the opportunities outside of the city?
I think you do need to prepare yourself at home first. For me, I never wanted to move until it felt like it was the right time, because there is a lot going on in Toronto, and I wanted to make sure that I did everything or almost everything that I wanted to do in the city before moving on to another city. So I think it's different for everyone. You need to move on when it feels right and when you're ready for it. There's not really anything I can tell you exactly that you need to prepare for, because everyone's journey is different. And you might feel when you're 19 that you're ready to move, and you may feel when you're 29 that you're ready to move. There's no real timeline on that. And I think that's something that also was really hard for me to get my head around, because the older I got, I felt like my time was running out and I need to make a move now or it's going to be too late. And now that I have moved, I realize that that's not true. And I went when I was ready. I felt like I'd done what I wanted to do in Toronto. I trained really hard here. I worked really hard, and it was just time for me to move on.
Natural.
Yeah.
How has your training helped you for the commercial work that you've done, especially in the UK? You've, what was it, within the first month or within the first 2 months, you booked some pretty big things?
Yeah. I would say versatility has been my winning asset for a lot of jobs that I've done.
Very nice.
I moved in November of 2017, and I booked my first job in January.
Nice.
So I was there for 2 months, and I was kind of shocked, honestly, that I booked a job that quickly, because there are so many dancers in London, and of course I had to audition for this job, and it actually ended up being the same choreographer running the audition who I worked with in Toronto on the MMVAs. So I think that had a bit of pull. It is a bit of who you know in any industry. So that was beneficial to me that I had someone over there who was vouching for me, who had worked with me and wanted to see me succeed in another city where he kind of told me to go.
Yeah.
My training also helped me with the work that I've gotten, because I grew up in a studio, so I learned a lot of different styles. And when you go to auditions, it's not always going to be just one style. If you're going to audition for a singer, more than likely, yes, it'll be commercial, it'll be jazz funk or hip hop, like along those lines. But sometimes they throw something else at you and you're doing a full contemporary routine. And for me, it's been in my court because I trained in almost everything, I would say. So whatever they throw at me, I'm not going to freak out. I'm just going to do it, and I know that I can do it well. And also, tricks are a plus. I grew up doing acro, so I can tumble, and that was definitely a plus in a lot of the auditions that I've done, because as a female dancer, there's not a lot of us who can do any sort of trick. So that's gotten me actually a lot of my jobs, is the fact that I can do tricks. So go train and learn how to do tricks.
Nice.
Yeah.
For those who are very curious about London, what's the scene like?
Oh boy. It's hard for me to tell you everything because, again, I've only been there for less than 2 years, and there's a lot to learn when you're going to a new city, and I went there knowing nothing. So it's all been a journey for me, and I can tell you what I know, and what I do know is that the scene is really cool. There's so many dancers, and there's just so much opportunity that I feel like when I'm there, I'm living the dance life that I dreamed of when I was a kid. When you watched those movies and they're at these huge auditions and there's so many people and you're fighting for that one spot, that's how I feel when I'm in London. Mm-hmm. And it's really cool because I didn't really get that opportunity in Toronto to be living that dance life, you know? Mm-hmm. So the dance scene out there is also very versatile. There's a lot of classes, like an overwhelming amount of classes. And it took me a really long time to figure out where to go and who to go to for the right training, because there was just so many options that I got overwhelmed and I didn't know what to do. And I would just find myself going to the popular classes, the ones that I saw on Instagram. And I thought, okay, they're full, I should go to that one. And more often than not, I left a little bit disappointed, feeling like I'm not training the way that I should be. Mm-hmm. And so when I took a step back from the popularity of certain teachers, I met the right people who I take their classes and I'm learning so much, which is what I want at this point in my career, because yes, I can do a clean line, I can be full out, I can do all of that, but now I want to learn new skills. So I'm going to teachers that are going to challenge me and put me in a really uncomfortable position so that I get better. Mm-hmm. And that's really cool for me because I was definitely comfortable in Toronto in almost all of the classes I was taking. I knew that I was good in the classes that I was taking, so it didn't really push me as hard as I wanted to be pushed. So yeah, that's one thing about the UK is there's a lot of classes and there's always options for you to dance every single day, all day, which is awesome.
Nice.
Yeah.
I just thought of this one question, which I think is very important and something that we got to talk about. But what is the visa process like?
Oh my God. To be in London?
Yeah. What is the visa process like to be in the UK? Because obviously both countries, Canada and the UK, were obviously under the monarch. So would you say it's easier to obtain a visa for a country like England?
This is fun because I just went through this whole process. So when I first moved there, I was on a working holiday visa, which there's so many countries that you can do that. If you're under 30, you apply online. You pay a fee, it's not that much, and you're given 2 years in this country to basically do whatever you want to do.
Nice.
Which is amazing. It's trying to encourage traveling in the youth.
Yeah.
And I took that as an opportunity to move to another country and see what the dance scene is like over there. So now that my 2 years has come to an end of my working holiday visa, I realized that I want to stay in London longer. Mm-hmm. And I was looking through all my options. The easiest one would have been an ancestry visa.
Ancestry?
Yeah. If your grandparents are from the UK,
nice,
you can get a visa and then you can become a permanent resident. Basically no problem. But I do not have that option. So I had to look into other types of visas, and the one that I had to do was the talent visa. It's called an exceptional talent visa, and it's really similar to the O1 with going to the US.
Yep.
Yeah, which I'm sure a lot of people are very familiar with. The difference is that for an O1, you basically make a Bible of your life and you send in so much, right? With the UK one, I was only allowed to send in 10 documents to prove that I'm the best dancer and that I deserve to be in the UK. So at first, I thought that's going to be easier because it's only 10 pages. It turned out to be so hard because I had to find the best 10 pages to represent myself and to prove to the Arts Council that I was worthy of this visa.
Yeah.
So it took me, I think I started the process in April of this year, and I submitted my visa at the end of August, I believe. And I was working all the time on it, emailing people, calling people, asking for letters, figuring out what I needed, what was best. I went through a lawyer. It was super expensive. But I'm happy to say that the Arts Council did approve my visa. So I've just sent in my passport to get the new visa put in. Mm-hmm. And that actually gave me 5 years.
Very nice.
In London. Yeah. So, I mean, it is hard. It's very hard, but it's doable.
Yeah.
I was really stressed doing it, but I did it.
Nice.
Yeah.
Would you say it's possible to make a living in the UK solely as a dance artist?
That is a tough question. I think it's doable. I'm not doing it. This is the first time in my life that I've had to have a part-time job. When I was living in Toronto, I also taught at competitive studios. So that was kind of, I guess you can call that a part-time job. Mm-hmm. But since I've been in London, yes, I'm working on being a full-time dancer, but I've done promo work, been a brand ambassador, done all of these random jobs. Like I did leafleting multiple times, which is the worst thing ever. And now I work in a vintage shop. So nice. It's cool, but it's weird to have a part-time job. I've never had to do that. And I would say the majority of dancers I know in London do have another source of income. However, there are some people who make a living as a dancer and only as a dancer. And to be honest, when you're in London, you can make a lot of money because there's set rates. Mm-hmm. And if you, for example, are on a tour, you don't need to have a part-time job when you come back because you make a lot of money on that tour.
Yeah.
There's also a lot of commercial work. So you could be one of those people that are constantly filming commercials. And with that, there's buyouts. So again, you're making a lot of money and you don't need to have a part-time job. So it is doable. I am not at that level yet. I hope to be one day. But I would say, like anything else, it takes time. And you're not going to be booking every single job right off the bat.
Mm-hmm. Speaking of tours, you were recently dancing with Dua Lipa.
Yes, I was.
What's it like, for anyone who hasn't had that experience yet?
I wouldn't necessarily say I was on tour with Dua. I traveled with her for about a month, going to different countries in Europe for different awards shows. Mm-hmm. It was just the awards show season, and she brought along 8 dancers. So I think I got a taste of what tour life is like, but it's not like we were going on a tour bus from city to city every day.
Yeah.
We were going to one country or one city for around 3 days usually, and then coming back to London, having a few days in London, then going to the next city, coming back. So it was the first taste of a tour for me, and that's what actually made me really realize that this is what I want, that I do want to go on tour. That was never a dream of mine before until I started traveling with an artist, and I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. It's definitely a dream. It's really cool.
Yeah.
Especially working with an artist like Dua. She takes care of her dancers and she makes sure that we're looked after and that we're being treated right. And we actually even got to go to after party stuff with her, which is really cool. And it kind of gave me a sense of what it's like to be a celebrity, even though I wasn't treated like a celebrity. Like, we would be at our hotel and there's girls and fangirls lined up around the street waiting for us to walk out of the hotel.
Yeah.
Following our bus to go to the venue. It was so strange, but it was a really cool experience, and I just hope that I will get the full tour experience soon.
I'm sure. I have no doubt you'll get there.
I hope so.
When you first landed in the UK, did you immediately look for representation?
I did, because I was told that you need to have agents when you're in the UK. And that was really new for me because I was never represented in Toronto. I did everything on my own. And so I had no idea how to get an agent, how to get represented, what I'm supposed to do. Like, I just had no clue. So I sent a lot of emails. I had to sit down and do a lot of research, because there's a lot of agencies over there as well. Mm-hmm. And it's non-exclusive. So you can have as many agents as you want to. I think that's a good thing, also a bad thing.
Oh, you say you can have multiple agents in the UK?
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah. So right now I have 3.
Wow.
And I think that I might try and sign with 1 or 2 more, just because each agent has their specialty.
Yeah.
So if you want to work with certain artists, you have to go to certain agents. If you want to do commercial work, you have to go to a different agent. So you really need to do your research. It's also interesting because certain singers are signed to certain agencies. So if you want to work with that specific singer, you have to be signed with that agency, or else it's never going to happen. Mm-hmm. So there's a lot of research behind where I'm going and which agency I'm going to. And luckily for me, I got signed fairly quickly to an agent called AMCK, and they're one of the leading agencies in the UK. They have gotten me basically all of my jobs that I've done there so far. They do a lot of artist work, so nice. They've been the best for me, and they also were really supportive of helping me with my visa and keeping me in the country.
Do you think that being signed with multiple agents in the UK provided you with a lot of consistent, not necessarily work, but opportunities?
Definitely. So, like I said, each agency kind of has a specialty.
Yeah.
And that's kept me busy, having 3 agents sending me to castings and auditions, because each agency is sending me to a different world every time that I go. So one of my agents is always artist work. Another one is mostly commercials. Mm-hmm. So they're very different, but it definitely keeps me busy having more than one agent. And I would recommend having more than one agent over there, but I would also recommend not having too many because they can clash. Yeah. And if they start sending you to the same auditions, then you have to choose which agency you're going with. And then obviously there's going to be some tension if you don't pick the right agent. And also you need to find the agency that's best suited for you mm-hmm. as an individual, because even if someone is signed to this certain agency, that doesn't mean that you should be signed with them as well.
100%.
Yeah.
What were some things that you realized you needed to do to start booking work more? Obviously, being represented by multiple agents does help with that type of stuff, but if we really want to get down to the nitty-gritty of it, were there some things that you had realized while you were there that you needed to work on?
This is a hard question for me because I'm still figuring it out.
Yeah.
I still feel new to London, even though I've been there for almost 2 years. Mm-hmm. It's really hard for me because I started being sent to all of these auditions, and that was new for me because I had to basically learn how to audition again. And just being sent on all of them, it's good practice, and I got more comfortable with it. But I think for me, I kept trying to cater to what I thought they wanted, which now when I look back on it, that's not what I should have been doing. And I should have just been myself, because that's what got me so far, is just being an individual.
Yeah.
And it's so easy to go into auditions and see the choreographer or see the casting director and think that you know what they want, because you don't. And I've been fighting with that a lot, because I leave auditions sometimes and I think, why did I dance that way? Because that's not the way that I dance. Or why did I make myself come across a certain way when that's not who I am? And it's just because I was trying to please the person that was hiring me.
Yeah.
And I think that set me back, honestly. So now what I'm just working on is calming down, first of all, before I go into auditions, because I get really nervous still. And to just remember that what I have to offer, it is what it is. I am who I am. And if they don't want me, then they don't want me. It's not necessarily a personal thing most of the time. Mm-hmm. But I've definitely learned that if a job is meant for me, it will happen.
Yeah.
If it's not meant for me, then you move on to the next one. And being given so many opportunities in London, it's been hard because I've been told no more times in my life than ever. And it's really discouraging a lot of the time. You have to have really thick skin, especially over there. And I take things very personally, which I'm working on. I think I'm just learning to go into auditions and go into castings and be myself and not try and be anyone else and not try and please someone else. And if they want me, they want me.
Yeah. Another thing that I just thought of now is that you now have company from Toronto out in London.
Yes, I do.
Yes, you do. And what I mean by that is, Samara is not the only artist from Toronto who's recently or obviously has moved out to London. Have you tried to keep in touch, or even have you seen other artists from Toronto in the same audition room as you?
I have seen other artists from Toronto, mostly at auditions, sometimes in class. I would say the person that I'm most connected to is Kevin Howe.
Yeah.
And he moved there about a year ago, and we actually live really close from each other. So
Very nice.
we hang out like on a regular, which is so funny because we both lived in Toronto for so long and we almost never hung out. And now that we're in a different city together, it's kind of like, why weren't we hanging out all the time? Because we click and we're such good friends now. And it just feels really nice to have a piece of home when I'm over there, because it's such a big city and it gets lonely. And to have someone like Kevin, if you know him, he's just such a positive energy and such a great person to have around. So it's really, really nice for me to have him on the other side of the world with me.
Nice.
Yeah.
Shout out to Kevin Howe.
Hi, Kevin.
When you're in London, what's one thing that you miss most about Toronto? Or what's one thing that you miss most about home?
Does this have to be about dance?
No.
Okay, I miss the food. It's really funny, but you would think in such a big city like London, the food would be amazing, but I miss the food in Toronto, like the late night restaurants that are always open, the different types of food. Like if I want jerk chicken, I can get really great jerk chicken. If I want Chinese food, it's right there. Like anything I want is so good in Toronto. And in London, like if I'm hungry and it's 11 p.m. at night, everything is closed. It's so strange. So I find when I come home, all I want to do is eat.
Nice.
Yeah.
Now, after being out of the city for a while, now that you're back, what do you think has changed the most?
I would say definitely the next generation has come up because I don't know anyone anymore. I go to classes and I feel like I know a couple people, but it's all new faces, which is also really cool. And then I think another big thing is I saw that Netflix opened a hub here.
I don't know if that's... I'm still trying to figure that out.
Okay.
There is a lot of work, though, from
There's
Netflix.
something going on with Netflix.
There's so many films that I've already been on. Like, it's
Yeah.
ridiculous. I just don't know if they opened an office yet.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't exactly know either, but I do know that the film industry has taken off in Toronto.
Yeah.
And I think that's really cool because when I was here, yes, there was a few Disney movies and TV shows like The Next Step and Backstage. Is that? Yeah.
Yeah.
But I feel like being out of the scene and pretty much only seeing on social media what's going on in Toronto and word of mouth from a few friends, it seems like there's so much work in the film industry. And I think that's so amazing for Toronto to have something big like that come to the city where it's given dancers a lot of opportunity to have good work.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really cool.
Nice. So earlier on, you were talking about getting approved for the exceptional talent visa,
Yes.
which means that we will be seeing very little of you for the next 5 years, which I don't know how other people feel about that. But then it's funny because the next question that I have is, are you moving back? And clearly we already know what that answer is like. I mean,
not exactly.
so circumstances can obviously change. Like, you never know. Like, anything can happen. In the next 5 years, there might not be as much work in the UK, and then we might have a lot of work here in Toronto.
Yeah.
Right? So, I mean, we'll see. Let's fast forward for the next 5 years. Let's say you've accomplished everything that you've wanted in London. And I guess things start to pop off in Toronto, or things probably won't. Once you've gathered all that knowledge, all that experience, what do you plan to do with it when you come back? Or if you come back?
I honestly, yes, I was approved for 5 years, but I don't know if I'll stay there for 5 years. I just wanted to have that option because I felt like I wasn't done. And I felt like there was more that I needed to do in London to be satisfied with my decision to go there.
Nice.
And who knows, maybe once that one job comes along, I could finish it and be ready to move home. I don't know. There's definitely aspects of my life in Toronto that I miss a lot. And I feel like I almost sacrificed my whole personal life for my career, which was really hard. And it's still really hard to be away from my best friends, my family, my boyfriend, my dog, in another country.
As Hallie does sit down work dog.
She's also with us right now, and she's really cute. But I think when I do move back to Toronto, I will probably get back into teaching because I taught a lot before I moved, and I really do miss it. I love teaching kids, especially. And maybe I want to start teaching a bit more into the professional world, really honing in on skills that you need to be a professional dancer and helping the generation under me become a professional dancer. I think I would like to do that, but I don't really know because I don't know when I'm coming back yet. But I do love teaching, and if I can help someone achieve their dreams, I'm going to do it.
Nice.
Yeah.
One thing I just thought about now is the people that you've worked with in the UK, are you the only one from Canada, or are there other people from different parts of the world that have moved into that country that you've met or worked with?
The majority of dancers that I know in London are not from London.
Wow.
A lot of them are from other parts of Europe. There's a couple from the States, and there are a few from Canada, different parts of Canada, a lot of Vancouver.
Yeah.
A couple from Toronto, but I would say the majority of dancers that I end up on jobs with are from Europe, which is really cool because we've all just decided to move to this one city. And it's really funny. Like when I was traveling with Dua, every single one of us dancers had a passport from a different country.
That's crazy.
It's so cool.
Nice.
Yeah.
Would you say that the UK or London is the mecca of dance in that side of the world?
I would, for commercial dance, because other parts of Europe, definitely for contemporary company work, you go to other parts of Europe, I think. But for the commercial stuff, I would say London is the best place to be, because a lot of artists base out of London, and that's where they go to find their dancers. So you need to be there and be ready to audition for these singers who will then take you to other parts of the world. But yeah, I would say London is the place to go if you want to be a commercial dancer in Europe and the UK.
Nice.
Yeah.
If you could give your younger self some advice, what would it be? Like if little Samara was right in front of you, what would you tell her?
Oh my God, little Samara. This is funny also. When I was little, I was terrified of going into dance classes. I would cry before every class, and my mom had to shove me into the room. But I would say just to believe in yourself a little bit more, because I always have doubt that I'm not good enough or that I'm not going to get to the point that I want to be at. And it's just a confidence thing. So I would just tell my younger self to go for it and to stop holding yourself back for things that haven't even happened yet.
Nice. Last question, and before we wrap this up, are there any new and exciting news that you would like to share? Obviously, we're not going to see you for the next 5 years, so.
It might not be 5 years.
No, I'm just kidding.
I mean, right now, my most exciting news is that I've been approved for my visa.
Yeah.
So that's kind of all I have for you right now, because when I go back, I'm just going to be auditioning again, and hopefully I'll be booking some big jobs over there. So I would say if you want to keep up with what I'm doing over there, I try my best to be active on social media so that people can see my journey over there. Because I'm sure a lot of dancers over here are very unfamiliar with what's going on in that side of the world, because before I moved there, I had no idea what was going on. So it's cool for me to be able to connect this community with another community and to maybe just let people know, hey, this is what's going on this side of the world. So, I'll try my best to post what I'm doing, and if there's big jobs that I'm doing, I will try to keep everyone in the loop, and hopefully that will be the case.
Yeah. Well, I know when you booked Dua Lipa, there was a lot of noise out in here
Really?
in Toronto, and I'd like to think that I speak for the rest of the city, but we are proud of you.
Oh, thank you.
And that ends off the show. This was such a pleasure. Thank you again.
Thank you for having me.
Did you want to drop your socials? Like, how can people keep up with your journey?
Mostly Instagram, and it's at Samara_Tong. It's just my name.
Nice.
Yeah.
Thank you all for listening to this episode. This is episode 32 with Samara Tong, freshly back from the UK and leaving again. If you like what you heard or are still curious to know a little bit more about the London, UK scene, be sure to hit her up at Samara_Tong on Instagram. And also, if there was one part of the episode that you'd like, feel free to let us know, and be sure to tag us on Instagram as well. My name is Roy. I'm the host of the Unplugged podcast, and we will see you guys next week.